Good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a beautiful day or night. In honor of serving up more biblical meat, honestly, what I want to do is cook you all something. You can think of it like Gideon serving the angel of the Lord a meal and it going up, so to speak. But sorry about my voice. I'd ended up yelling at my girlfriend more than I anticipated last night because I guess we both fell asleep and she woke me up like 30 minutes before I had to be at work, which usually I'm late when that happens. I was on time yesterday. But when I was yelling in anger at myself, like, God, just upset, she started to do the whole, it's not my fault. I didn't have nothing to do with it. Why are you, and started like yelling at me and like, yeah. And so that's when I started yelling back at her. But, shit happens. She'll get home tonight. It'll be cool. That's life, I guess, the balance. Not everything is perfect, and I get sick and tired when influencers constantly show you all just perfection all the time. I like to show you all other sides of myself, but in doing so, I like to give people an example of what I see as righteous anger or people exemplifying feelings instead of bottling them in. A lot of us men have been taught to not speak on certain things. And I can see it manifesting when I see people detransitioning or when I see women becoming men and they say their number one problem is they used to be able to cry, they used to be able to hug, hold hands, get all their affection and feelings out while I don't want to hold you all's hands while crying. I'm not saying I want to do that. I'm saying most of the videos are men crying now because they can't express themselves. They can't talk to people. They can't call people. Even from transitioning from a lesbian or a woman to a man, what a lot of people fail to realize is that there are sections of humanity that don't really necessarily like men too much. And when I say that, it's not unrighteous. People create their surroundings, so to speak. And when you grow up and learn this isn't Sesame Street, you see things that could twist and manipulate how you originally thought. And so, biblical meat, I'm sorry. Biblical meat. So, I want to talk some more about the revelations because while people use scriptures as they will to build what they want, which I guess rightfully so, if it wasn't so violent, full of exclusion, segregation, and hatred, and murder and theft, colonization and enslavement, and anti-humans' preferences when it comes to their own personal sexuality with another consenting adult who is of age for whatever reason. A lot of projecting going on. But anything I try to explain to you all, I want you all to understand that these are metaphors and analogies from my heart. I am the same thing you all are in terms of, I believe, what I will call humanity or this being on this rock that's flying through space. What I have to say is, first I want to talk about, I brought up the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet in a video before this. And a lot of times the Pharaoh is likened to the dragon because, so when I say that, I'm not saying the Pharaoh is the dragon. What I'm doing right now when I say likening things, I'm using it as a metaphor as something else because they are alike. And so the very first Pharaoh was Moses, Moses. The Bible actually agrees with this. I will make you a god to these people. Them showing any depiction of a Pharaoh before Moses or Moses in history is a lie in written history. Africa first had provinces, then kings. The very first king I can find in recorded history is Means Narmer, which is a funny anagram to me or re-saying to me of Cain the farmer. Means Narmer. It is also another way of saying Nimrod, means rod and cane, mean Narmer, because that's what kings and pharaohs held, rods and cane, Canaan. So Nimrod, a man who became likened to a pharaoh, I honestly believe means Narmer influenced Babylon because if you read history, means Narmer was a conquering king. He took over different nations. And these different words, why they like are in the Middle East and Africa is because when they first had inceptions and when people were mixing back and forth, they used a lot of similar language. Even if you look at the difference between British people's English and American people English, there's huge differences, right? But they are very similar. A person from England could easily communicate with me or somebody else, while trying to communicate with somebody from Germany may be a little bit harder. But English was influenced by German. They're basically almost the same language with a lot of variances in different variables. Okay, that's where the word God comes from. Germanic paganism, Gudan, Guthis, Gud. Okay, moving forward. I'm not an atheist, I'm not a Christian. I'm just simply am who I am, giving information. And so if you guys hear me saying something in a moment of time like God isn't real or Jesus isn't real, understand I am speaking about something deeper because the word God and Jesus exist. Just like Harry Potter, the word exists. So God and Jesus will always be real, and they are characters in a book. And so essentially I could be lying by saying God and Jesus aren't real, and I could be telling the truth. Because then when I say God and Jesus aren't real, I'm talking about the spirits and fantasies that human conjure and then create lies out of. And so even if I create anything, it's the truth. Even if I create any teaching, it exists, is what I should say. And so now it's out there. And so it is a physical thing once created. But there may be lies within it, whether confusion, whether coping, feeling, whatever reasons, money. So a lot of times people are giving subjective information as concrete based on their personal beliefs. Which even that could be argued. What's concrete? Everything is subjective. Okay, so the biblical meat. What I want to explain to people is why I brought this up. Now, before I was using metaphorical examples like Babylon sitting on the beast and this and that and blah, 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 and the Ten Commandments and how the Ten Commandments transformed. Really, before that, the laws of Mu'at, how all that lore transformed over time and became corrupt. In physical history, you would have, after Amos, you would have a bunch of different people with Mos in their name, which to me, I call that taking a man's garment. It's just a metaphorical teaching, dude. And so essentially, that's why a lot of times I liken Aaron to those pharaohs after him. You would have a lot of pharaohs that will become very corrupt and very maniacal and do what means Narmer was doing, but much more violently. They ended up calling Egypt the house of bondage for a reason because of what it became. And so essentially what I'm saying with this is that why did Moses become a pharaoh? Amos become a pharaoh, and why did any of this happen? And how did something that was so simple turn into a dragon, then a beast, and then a false prophet? Because a lot of times when you guys hear me talking about Pharaoh, people just think like evil, or they don't think religion, but that's what it was. Pharaoh was a god to these people. They eventually created an institution where kings became gods, which was actually illegal back in the day. And you'll notice the shift because from the laws of Mu'at to the Ten Commandments, both say respect the gods and don't. So while it might have gone from polytheism to monotheism, which I don't actually think happened, there's a lot of lies in written biblical history. Amos was bringing the Amun. And the reason why that's important is because that's a transliteration of Atum, or however you say it. And Atum was the first god, where I think they got the name Adam from. And so throughout time, you would have the separation from oneself because Adam would be seen as a god, right? He's the walking, living God. But then humanity throughout time separate from their own spirit, thinking, knowledge. They put it in the air into an entity, an idol, or some item. And then they lose a portion of themselves and give that power to the gods. And so if you follow along with me, the reason I'm getting physical now is because you would have Amos, and there was a people called the Hyksos. They were Asiatic shepherd kings. So while we call these people Middle Easterners, and they were Asiatic and African, but they had moved away from Africa so long ago that now they had developed into Asiatic blood. A lot of these people of Asian descent also have Denisovian DNA. A lot of what you guys are seeing is that, okay, please follow along. If I were to talk to you about evolution, the reason why this gets extremely fucking confusing is because they do the same thing with evolution as everything else. They create a concrete structure and believe they know everything about that shit. So I'll give you an example of what I mean. Okay, humans a super fucking long time ago, however long ago. You guys say, if we're humans, why they're still uh I'm going to use the proper terminology and then say what you guys tell me. Why are there still gorillas, orangutans, chimpanzees, bonobos, and of the ape family? But when people say this to me, they go, "Why are there still gorillas, apes, and monkeys?" Okay. What you're doing is you're taking away from the gorilla's evolution. You're taking away from the chimpanzee's evolution. You're taking away from the. So if I was to say, I have cousins. So those cousins have something in common with me. Our parents are brothers and sisters. But then those brothers and sisters separated, had new people that they had mixed with, and had new children. So now those people are my cousins and not my brothers and sisters like our parents. What you're seeing is a long fucking time ago, there was a bunch of a similar thing. That similar thing branched out based on its location and used its survival instincts to develop new patterns and features. Well, you say that the brain is an intelligent design. So how much more is the brain over millions of years learning and learning and learning and developing new features and genetic code to send and splice for its new environments? What does that have to do with the Bible? Whole bunch of humans that are now different than all these other animals. They have 21 species of humans found through archaeology. You guys might not want to believe this or understand what I'm saying, but the reason why this is silly for you not to believe and understand is because if I go live in the heart of Africa all my life and I have a twin that moves to Alaska, when you bring us back together in our 50s or however long later, we are going to look totally different for different reasons. So then think millions of years. So essentially then you would have all these different types of humans. One faction, the hominid or the Homo sapien, has interacted with all these different types of humans, whether they have breeded with them, whether they have extincted them. We do not know if the Denisovians and the Neanderthals, which is a whole another species of humans, were murdered, killed, like in war, or if they just became extinct. Because they found a whole bunch of Denisovians in a cave. Bones of all types, children, elderly, and it don't look like they were murdered, like they just were hiding in there and they died or some shit, or found disease or virus, or it could have been a burial ground. This species of human that are all on the earth, that are all compatible through hardware and software, if you will, took over the planet. But a lot of what we did was mix with other species of humans, and that's why we have so many genetic variances. What we also did was separated a bunch of times. So then, I'll give you an example. You have the Africans now. You have all these people that branched out. Then you would have Middle Easterners or Asiatic people that branched out a long time ago and been interacting with these Denisovans and doing what they do. Then you have the humans up in Europe that were interacting with the Neanderthals, and we have no idea what happened. But now, Africa, I haven't seen too many extinct forms of complete humans outside of us, Homo sapiens. The original human was of darker descent, Homo sapien. The Denisovans and the Neanderthals might have been different colors and whatever, ethnicities and races. But the humanity of this faction was started by Africa. Why do I bring that up? A lot of times you'll hear me call Asiatic people Shem, and you'll hear me call Europeans Japheth, and Africans Ham. That is just a vague marker to describing color. Because a lot of ethnicities have certain colors. And so it's easier to do it that way. And so Why is this important? Biblical meat. When the Hyksos, Asiatic people from the Canaan, Levant, Saudi Arabia, that whole place, and some of the Persians and stuff, because the Aryans was going down and attacking the Persians in the Indus Valley too. A lot of humans were mixing and doing stuff. What happened was the Hyksos attacked Africa in the 1900s BC. They went back and attacked. When they had did this, 300 to 400 years later, according to written history, in the 1500s, a man named Ahmose came later and had an exodus and dispelled the Hyksos. But by that time, he was bringing laws to stabilize this country. Well, so a lot of these people, now you have a different faction of humanity. You have Africans, Asiatic, and African and Asiatic mix. I will call them Arabic for the time's sake. This tracks in the Bible, just with a lot of stuff switched around, confused, and mixed up, because if you ask people where they got Judaism and or a lot of stuff and why the Arabs have completely taken over Northern Africa, like I said, the Caliphate and the Byzantine, because a lot of Catholicism was East, they call it Eastern Orthodox. A lot of these Polish and people that claim to be Jew now were Catholics. I'm telling you they were. They were Eastern Orthodox. Humanity be lying for no reason. And so then what happened was you have this exodus, and then you have new factions of people. Well, they lied about a bunch of stuff. They said Abraham went into Egypt and he was lying and stuff. Well, first of all, that tracks with the Hyksos going and meeting the pharaohs. But there was no pharaoh yet. A bunch of this, especially in the beginning when they were saying the pharaohs and Africa became corrupt and the Nephilim, total fucking bullshit and lie. There was no pharaohs yet. That's why I do not like the Noahides also. It's all got twisted around. Because what they're doing is Noah is another way of saying Pharaoh. If you take the prefix of Noah and Pharaoh off, it's the same suffix. You can switch the words around. They're interchangeable. And you won't be able to know the difference. Fair and then Pharaoh. They have different pronunciations, but it's the same ending. I'm telling you it is. So then what they're doing with this book, and why you guys are like, how is Judaism exploding? How is Christianity exploding? It's religious cosplay and torment. They're getting these serpent-like teachings in people's heads and tormenting people. So this is what the pharaohs was doing. Then you have people becoming corrupt after Ahmose. Well, then before this happens, you have a man named Akhenaten. That's Josh, who I liken to Joshua. He went and did a whole bunch of raiding into Canaan and a bunch of other stuff and formulated. But he was also bringing the Aten, which is a tune. It's just a different spelling. They are doing nothing but changing these words around and switching the consonants and vowels. Or they're taking the vowels and switching them. This is basically the same consonants. And so then later on, that's what I would call the dragon formulating in written history, which is forming the ultimate 10 commandments. Because what broke through, the baby that broke through, was obviously Moses and the 10 commandments. That was produced out of this dragon-like cosplay and lore. Then later on down the line, after I call him Zoroaster, starting to reform the Middle East, then there's a bunch more of I wouldn't say they're monotheistic yet, but they're having a major god, right? And what Zoroaster doing, I call him like Elijah. What he was doing is, which is just LSJ. I'm telling you it is. They're taking, Zoroaster took a bunch of teachings and stuff from Egypt and that canonical spirituality, and he brought it to the Middle East. That's why you see all those fire temples, and they got the Egyptian births in there. That's basically Mentuhotep II and what's where I'm looking for? Muat. They were, Rick and Morty's got a line. He's like, why is it always punk bird? That's a lot of, they were into eagles and stuff. And the falcon. And so then you go down the line, different people are attaching themselves to these religions. And then what they're doing is the king of, what's his name, Melchizedek? That was the king of Sodom. And he ministered to the Hyksos, Abraham, Brahmaham, right? And then after all the people from the Indus Valley and the Hyksos and Asiatic people came and took over Africa, then you would have a mix. And then later down the line, you would have corruption forming. This is where I say the beast is forming. And if I was to put heads on it, because even with the Old Testament, I don't like taking it outside the Ten Commandments, any of the stuff, but if I was to do that, I think in the Old Testament there were 7 enemies of Africa, Egypt. Because if you look at those enemies, they were all Middle Eastern, I think, and Middle Eastern nations. And they said the Pharaoh. That's because then people came and invaded and raided. And when Africa took it back, over time, it became corrupted. You have Ramses, Tutmos, Harem Hub, and Ahab, or whatever his name is. And so it's just a bunch of corruption over time. So then you would have, like, look at King David and Solomon and all them. How are they different than Nebuchadnezzar and these other people? And when I talk about castrating, even they said David went and took 200 foreskins off of men, circumcising them. Just violence everywhere, and enslavement, and in most cases they wouldn't even mix with people or castrate and slave. They would just kill them. They were killing entire nations. It became violent, the beast. And so, like I said, insert 7 enemies in the Old Testament. I'm just going off book report logic. And so those heads, but the body would be the Pharaoh, right? It ended up becoming king-like gods type shit. Then you would have the beast. Now, the beast isn't tricky, but it is, because when a lot of people talk about Daniel and the prophets, their names wasn't Daniel and none of shit. And people are changing shit over time. The Caliphate, the Byzantine, the English church, they all did it. Judaism is seeking to do it right now. I didn't say Jews, which I don't know what an ethnic Jew is. You people are Polish, Russian, Syrian. I'm tired of the bullshit. And so what ends up happening is the 7 heads could be like in, what happened was a lot of these poets were writing at the time when Rome and Greece was battling each other. And a lot of these prophets from Nebuchadnezzar, they even said Nebuchadnezzar was putting people in lion dens and killing them. And then they make cute little lores out of it. Daniel didn't get ate by the lion. There's people that did this, jumped in lion dens and got ravaged because he's lying fucking books. Or I could liken it to a great metaphor. Different men still survived. One of 2 ways. Men either survived that time period and were still faithful, or they were martyred and were brave and happy to do so. They said people in the Middle Ages, and I'm going to get into the 4th and 5th generation and all that. It's interesting through time. But they said people was dancing in fire pits and screaming for joy, being burned and hanged. I was like, holy fuck. Well, you could look at that like a strong spiritual teaching. Or you could look at it as a man's spirit was so powerful that even though the kings and other people was killing people and martyring people for that, look at Jehohanan. They was killing people on behalf of that, but Christianity still lived. Or Jesus, sorry. John the Baptist and all that still lived. Even though they was violently killing people for it, it became a god. So there's different ways of metaphors to explaining how something could live on or something could survive something like a lion's den. But most of these people was murdered when they didn't listen to the kings. So you're not getting words of prophets. You're getting actions that happen and people rebuking kings, and then people write about it afterwards, telling stories and lores of men. And so then the 7 heads, I'm sorry. The beast I can get more accurate with. And why this isn't really some perfect prophecy, these prophets were writing at the time of Rome. They let the sages of Yahweh live, and who would be the one that was passing the word, because it's Vespasian, and who would be the one spreading the words on? The sages of Yahweh and religious priests and stuff. But these men were Middle Eastern and Arabic. I don't know, African, Asiatic. And so the point is, one of the heads will be Babylon. And the reason why this ties into the Crimson Beast is because, and I'll explain the 8th beast too within this metaphor. So remember how the Babylon, she sits on the Crimson Beast. Why is this important? When I say this, I'm not anti-Semitic. The Babylonian Talmud. I don't know if you guys read this book or understand what all these rabbis are talking about or any of this stuff, but why would you all hate Rome in honor of your ancestors but love Babylon? That doesn't make fucking sense. Babylon was slaughtering you people, and the only person in written history that I saw was giving any relief, but were still tyrants, was Cyrus the Persian guy and the Greeks and Alexander the Great. And actually Alexander, I guess, loved Egypt. Rome didn't like that and coveted after that shit and burned it down. And so it's all confusing. I don't understand this shit. But Babylon attacked first, and then some man named Nebuchadnezzar or something like that. And if you watch enough of my videos, some of these prophecies can be likened to things to where they live out. Like the statue of gold and stuff. Senesses was buried in gold. Or I think it was Akhenaten's son was buried in gold or something like that. Then Sunesis was buried in all silver. Then, by the time Nebuchadnezzar was out, there was bronze tubs or stuff that you would be buried in. And then now it's wooden coffins. That's crazy, right? That's a funny prophecy. That's insane. So, but that's just a metaphor. Anyways, the point is, Akhenaten's son, I forgot what his son name is, but his son basically betrayed his father because Akhenaten was great. He was doing what Moses was doing, reforming Egypt, making it like of their culture and stuff, bringing back the old stuff and civilizing it. Even Mentuhotep II was civilized. He let people of his enemies live and was turned to democracy. It's about Greece was the first democracy. Anyways, so you go down the line, Babylon. Don't know why y'all like it, whatever. Which is why she sits on the beach. She was the first one to attack. So then, even also as a metaphor, why it's only heads, because eventually, if you look at the New Testament, they was only striking if you didn't follow the other 7 commandments, or if you blaspheme the first 3. And that's what likens the 3 horns becoming 1 horn. What's happening is, at the beginning of the 10 commandments, the first 3, you got the name of a god, a phrase, and then the first 3 commandments. Blasphemies are written all over this, murder and kill and names of gods and stuff. They even turned the 10 commandments to kill for the 10 commandments. But thou shalt not murder. So what happens is once they put the name of the God, Allah, Jesus, God, Hashem, whatever, now none of this matters, and they just do whatever the God says. It becomes a talking piece, like the dragon, the Pharaoh. And so then the heads are what's important, though, because it's 10 horns of power, and the heads are what's important. So now you got 1 mouth, you got 1 major law, the first one, and the other 7. So it's like an 8th beast, if that makes sense. That can get mathematical. This is just coming from me. Because now you have 7 horns, essentially. 8 horns. And so then the 1 horn that matters on top is doing all the talking, and then the 7 heads that strike. Babylon was the first nation to attack. But really, if you look at like Iran or the other 10 tribes, whatever y'all call them, Syria was in the mix and all sorts of stuff. So people could put heads on all type of this. But so the first head I like to Babylon. Second head, Persia, because they attacked and invaded, and that's even in the Bible and written in history. I think the Bible was copied from African and other written history, and then they created a final print with Martin Luther and stuff like that. And the German printing press, and then English was coming out, or people was learning more English with the printing press and reading. So then, here's where it kind of gets tricky. And I can liken them also to these creatures, which the prophets would already knew about, so it's not prophecy. You have the lion, right? Babylon, the dreadful lion. You have the bear, right? Persia, which now I like them to like Judaism and Islam, which is really important. I'm going to show how this mixes into the 4 rivers also, the number 4. So then you have the leopard. The leopard has 4 heads. So if you take 1, 2, lion, bear, 2 heads, then you take the 4 heads, that's 6 heads, right? So then that's like Greece. It's split in 4 directions, 4 major parts in real history. And what Greece did was it took over, it finally conquered Egypt to where it was able to change Egyptian lore first. Now you're having the Egyptian gods mixed with the Grecian gods, and then they're writing all the Torahs too. Each of these nations had a Torah. The Babylon did a Torah, and that's why this is all important and ties together from the religious aspect. Babylon had a Torah, Persia had a Torah, Greece had a Torah, and Rome essentially just basically became the Christian Bible, or the Codex Sinaiticus. And then the Greeks had a Septuagint and a Torah and all this stuff. And so if you look at written history, what debunks a lot of racists and supremacists, the Greeks wrote about them, the Persians, the Africans were insane amazing. They created basically civilization and humanity from our perception in this written timeline. And so then you would have the 7th head, the dreadful beast, Rome, that came and conquered, took over everything, and his head was healed because it switched to Catholicism. And over time, because Jehoiakim was fucking Rome up because of all the shit that was spreading. They started believing in Christianity, and Jews were spreading the message and the sages of Yahweh. And one of the major factors that had changed this, I know y'all hate Vespasian, but Vespasian and Titus. Vespasian actually fell in love with Yohanan, the Ben Zakkai, they call him, because he predicted that Vespasian was going to be emperor once Nero fucked up. And it happened. And so then once Vespasian died, Titus took control. They both deemed themselves gods because they got the word and spirit. I'm telling you what these people are doing. They know what they're doing. They're hiding this knowledge to create gods to stay in power. Why do you think all these men became gods all of a sudden, like the pharaohs? And where did this shit initiate? Pharaohs. So then you would have Titus coming back, destroying the temple, saying, fuck all this shit, but the sages of Yahweh are already living and spreading the word. Now, when Vespasian came, he expelled them people, but then Titus, like Nero, was going to the temple and tearing it apart and shit. And so then you would have a whole bunch of civil unrest and civil war. So then it transformed. Now you have the beast. Why I say the beast coming out of the ground, now I'm going to literalize it. Catholicism, Protestantism, and a mouth like Islam. Now, well, look, the Persians and the Pharaoh and then the Hyksos that originally invaded Africa speaks like the dragon. You see what I'm saying? It all ties together. And I mapped this out very carefully, and I didn't do it by myself, and I did a lot of research and listened to a lot of other people talking about end times and stuff, and listen to people who map things out before me. So like I said, I'm not some ultimate. We all teach each other. I'm just trying to do this as logically as possible. So then this beast comes out the ground, and then I would liken the Crimson Beast to all of them combined because they're all the same entity. And they're all the same basically thing. The Pharaoh's the mouthpiece that was talking for everything. So that's like to one horn upon all the horns of power. That when they eventually create the 10 Commandments. Oh, physicality. So then in that middle period, what you have is all these Torahs being created. And that's what the Talmud is, a record of all the rabbis adding more and more religious lore, religious lore, religious lore. But before the rabbis, they was doing it in the Middle East. When they was creating gods and stuff. They talking about the nation of Islam, that was Canaan. I mean, they talking about the Israel, that was Canaan. It was Canaan, and they have all these other names of nations, Edom and Sodomites and all these different people. And then they transformed it over time into Israel and Judah and all these different names. Then they transformed it over time into Islam and Christianity and all these other. The reason I don't like saying Christianity, I told y'all, is because Protestantism and Catholicism are two different things. I'm telling you they are. And so the Crimson Beast, Babylon rises. She started a lot of this mess because Judah was the one that was going forth. Israel basically got consumed. And so then the different heads I would liken to different time periods. But why it's called the eighth beast, you got the major 10 commandments that they were stoning for, the 7 laws, and the first 3 horns that took over for everything. And I call that 8 laws of destruction, the eighth beast. And so if I would go to the Lamb, I left out a major thing, the spirit that hovers above the waters, the ark that hovers above the waters, and then look at this, the Lamb that walks above the fiery water. Because fiery water is just lava. Water and fire are both likened to plasmas, just different forms of it. So they're not the same thing, and don't play with it. And so it's more detrimental in the newer times because at first religion was battling each other to fight corruption, but now the corruption has become the thing that's been battling a major mountain or tree that's going to be smashed by a rock one day, metaphorically speaking, with hands uncarved out of a mountain. So the Lamb, this is why the Lamb is important, and where all these 7 angels each time. And what's happening is I can liken the Lamb to the tabernacle, how these angels come out and come back and forth. And the difference between the Lamb and the dragon, as I explained, is I would liken to the Lamb to the 144. But the reason why this all ties together is because each person has their own personality or spirit. What happens is when you get those first 3 commandments, as I leave them, or you get them righteously and get this righteous spirit, you become more peaceful, humble, less likely to do things violently, harm people, less likely to do murderous things. So you become likened to a man, or you become likened to a lamb in a world full of beastly kings and violent people. Well, the reason why this spirit, so then like we'll strip the man. Now we're just going spiritual. So any person like me, I could be likened to a lamb. But I keep telling y'all, don't fucking play with me. I'm not likened to the lamb. I'm a little different. And so what happens is throughout time, and why I come with the new message, they were martyring and killing people, trying to deliver these messages, trying to break away from God's. I am likened to Gideon. My father says, if your gods be real, let them deal with this man tearing down the Jesus and Muhammad poles. Lest you all be fucking liars and your gods can do nothing. So, what I'm saying is, now I'm likened to a battle lamb. I don't have a sword in my hand. I'm not hurting people. The sword of the mouth. my words, which can cut asunder deep into the heart and spirit, where my flesh cannot go. And so then what do I teach? The other seven commandments. So I am likened to the first three, an ark. The other seven commandments are the stars in my hand, and the words that come out of my mouth are a sharp sword. While I try to do the best of I can to exemplify peace and humbleness and mercy, I know that we live in a world full of RNG, random number generators. I said many times the mind can be like a Google search bar. First empty, anything put in there, even if you're typing in how to stop a predator, before you get that far, a whole bunch of other stuff could pop up that could be detrimental, right? Because of the words used. It's simply the user navigating and doing what who I am needs to do. And so the angels that are coming and plaguing the earth, I could liken to myself to the whole earth. Everything, the universe, the stars, all that. And this body has heavenly stuff in it, right? Like lights and stars. It's likening things in here that guide the whole flesh, my knowledge, my consistent consciousness, my everything, my perception, my conceptual awareness. So now outside of all that, I will say those seven angels are likened to the seven commands. They come out of the tabernacle, plague what the old spirits and kings and teachings have built on the earth, and they plague and throw fire and destroy it. Metaphorically speaking, don't light people on fire, don't stone people, don't harm people. If you're going to do that, based on what I'm saying, you're a liar and a thief. And I will put back into my temple one day and destroy thee. So what it's doing is the other seven commandments: don't kill. Okay, cool. Don't steal. Ooh, put that back. Oh, don't covet. I don't know what they got. Do you know what a K-pop star is? Do you know what these different stars, do you know who 3LW is? TLC, I mean. 3LW. You know what TLC is and these other groups? Don't inspire to be other people. You have no idea. What happened to Kanye? You don't know. Don't bear false witness. I mean, goodness gracious. Just lying on people. Inherently, we don't want to lie, but a lot of times lying comes from fear, pressure, and tyranny. Because just like if we are afraid of torment, we're afraid of judgment because of torment and fear and shit like that, because of what we've been taught. And so, the other commandments, the whole thing with the Sabbath, do what you're going to do in life. But I'm telling you simply from my perspective, if I have a 6-day work week or a 5-day work week, a day or two off is cool. You don't have to sit in this chair like, oh, I'm not doing what you were originally doing. Or if you want the whole day off to rest and sleep in the bed, who's going to bother you? But if you got chores to do and you live in a society or something, like you got a wife and kids and stuff, in life there's consequences. Just like how they give you good feelings, you fuck up, they're going to let you know. At the same time, respect each other. Just like the metaphor, I'm bringing a sword to separate the father, the mother. Would you want a family that's corrupt and psycho all coming together and building something? I was just watching one of these cold case deadly files where a father was talking about, we're the Yahweh family, we're only in the Old Testament. And they had eventually ended up with guns going to try to kill people. The son said, no way, snitched on him, and the father's doing life. Now the father's writing him like, you're going to be destroyed by Yahweh one day, you betray me. A real fucking psycho. That boy grew up, broke away from his father's house and did right and met the real spirit of the living one and broke away from that satanic spirit who is cloaking itself in leaves named Yahweh. Because if you want to know what Yahweh means, it means I am who I am. I simply am who I am. I'm the one who invokes power. God means to invoke the power of a spirit. Everything we do invokes power. Spirits. When you go into a house, it's something really deeply psychological, but I'm not going to do all that. When you go into a house and see Christmas lights, Christmas tree, none of that is inherently evil. You guys are mixing what they were doing 1,000 years ago, 300 years, however many years ago, with now like, oh, they used to deck trees with silver. Yeah, but this is only for hypocrites who go, idols and God, and you're a demon and burn to hell. Then yes, it's an idol. Fuck off. But people who I love pretty colors. I love pretty lights. I didn't even have a Christmas tree in my house for the last 2 years, but I had them before because I don't care. It's nostalgia. But those people, it can become an idol. It has to be there for Christmas. I have to do Valentine's Day. That's a spirit. You don't see it because you're the one living it out, doing it. So it's not a spirit. It's you acting a certain type of way. And I'm just saying it's a spirit. Look what you're doing. That's it. And so you walk to a house full of, there's a Christmas tree, gifts, and cocoa, eggnog, chicken noodle soup, whatever. It's a good, comforting feeling. Maybe you get nostalgia. Maybe somebody from Islam sees all that and thinks you're a demon. Maybe you go over there and see them walking around a building. You like, oh, idol demon. We can so easily label other people's shit when it's not us, right? So, but when I speak of certain spirits, people will do things unaware and are bound by those things. I don't say fuck the Holy Spirit of God. I don't say fuck Jesus Christ and all these other things to teach you all to be like, oh, anti-God, metal, destruction. No, I do it to strengthen your relationship with who I am, with God. To show you that you're more afraid of this remote control than the one who created the fucking remote control. So, I'll give you another example. People, okay, I'm going to give you an anomaly. Why humankind is fucking up right now in a strange way. They sell holy water on TV. They sell cloths. This lady was selling, I think it was Trump's spiritual advice. She's selling blessings for $1,144 or $144 or $441 or $11 if you can't afford it. And that's your reservation into heaven. What? No. Stop trying to martyr yourself. Stop trying to self-harm psychologically to please God and all sort of crazy shit. Oh, if I'm low and I'm humbling God, that doesn't make sense. I want my kids to prosper and be happy and be rich and stuff, but I don't want to be snobs and psychos and evil. So, like when it says the seventh angel finally blew his trumpet, that's all you. It's your kingdom. You, after the 10 Commandments change who I am, I can now rain down and be the new person. Does that make sense? We're all coming over, oh, Jesus, and it's supposed to be us. It's the idea of the chalice from Indiana Jones. The Nebuchadnezzar in the box. Why you should eat the king's meat. Because they'll have you think you're going to burn in fucking hell and have you in a psychological paradox not being able to sleep at night. So, the 144. It's just wordplay. 12 and 12. 12 tribes, 12 apostles, whatever. Multiplication. It's a symbol of all the people who was martyred throughout time. Now, the third and fourth day, they will hate me and despise me. How many fucking idols did they create? How many times I'll tell you, I don't want God. We want a king. We want this and that. Blah, 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 blah. It was really like that based on written history. People was going to new gods all the time. I don't know what, there's polytheism everywhere. But the fifth and sixth generation, Jesus fucking Christ, between Yehohanan and William Tyndale and Martin Luther King, these niggas, I'd happily get shot. I want the world to change. You should see what they were saying. Happy to die for God. That shit literally lived out. A day is but 1,000 years to the Lord. It has been 6,000 years since the tomb. Adam. We are going from day 6, 6,000 and blah, 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 into day 7. In the year 3000 AD, from my supposedness, from whatever prophecy y'all keep creating, is going to be the end of whatever physical y'all created. So I could even say that as in the oldest written languages are like Giz and Ethiopian languages and Kush and even hieroglyphics came later. Super base, bro. Y'all, everything's coming from these Memphis steels and steels from Africa. That's how they know about the Isirar, Israel, right? They just switch letters around, change words, recreate. Is it real? It's biblical cosplay. And so the 144 is just all the people martyred. And now me, being a normal person, learning the truth about, they killed 3,600 Jewish people that day when Nero was trying to steal the gold out the vault. They crucified Yehohanan and his family members and his son. They was killing people after that, but not all of them died. They spread into Europe, but they was castrating and killing and enslaving men. Y'all know what Rome was doing. That's why they switched it to now the woman spreads the seed. Real sneaky. Do anything to keep this dumb shit alive. We're all humans. We're all family. They're doing stupid shit to keep it alive, and it's unpleasing to me. The 4 rivers, right? There was 4 beasts that attacked, just like the 4 people that stand around the throne. It's all good or evil. The whole book, the beginning fruit. I'm going to give an example. The beginning fruit said, live your life, don't get into good and evil. Then look what happened at the end of the book. There's a fucking fire dragon, a beast. There's a water dragon, a beast, and a false prophet, and a lamb with a super mega sword, 7 stars, and 144,000 crucified people. Wake up. The 4 rivers at the beginning. 4 nations attacked from this biblical perspective. 4 religions was created out of it. Judaism. I'm going to say them in order. Catholicism. Islam. Protestantism. Judaism. The 4 rivers that flow from this book. Do it not? The physical ones. Or, if I get metaphorical with that one, there's 4 sections of this book. The first, the Torah, which they call the Exodus and all that, right? We'll call that Moses, Amos, who they got from Africa. Ugh. I took my hand on my bosom and it was white. And then it turned normal. Y'all are based as fuck. Then you got the judges, right after Moses. You got the prophets. And then you got the apostles. I don't give a shit about the kings. Cool Psalms. I don't give a shit about all these other shits. Those 4 rivers, to me, are the 4 rivers that flow from the God. To me, the Nephilim and the flaming sword is the Old Testament and the New Testament. That's how you know about any of this shit. Moses fucked y'all heads up according to this book, and the Lord Jesus Christ have been sawing y'all in half for I don't know how long. I told Moses, come with me, and I grabbed the flaming sword. And I went and I attempted to eviscerate the Drake and all this other stuff. When I realized, I began perpetuating it even further. And I told people to wake up. Let's humanity and science for a while. Told y'all that don't mean go ultimate logic, cut brains out, be efficient. It means everybody learns at their own pace. And we all do our thing. And even in the beginning of the book, it says, there will be no more curses. There will be no more this and that and blah, blah, blah. The stream of who I am forever flowing so that we can all get it secularly or come together and create our friendship hold hand circle if we need to. And so if people have questions about metaphors, these notifications are testing my phone. Sometimes they shadow ban me because I talk about Judaism while gay boy German clavicle, whatever his name is, clavicore, can teach 14-year-olds how to get meth, speed, coke, and starve themselves to look max. What the fuck is look maxing, bro? Red pill? A friend asked me a long time ago, do I want the red pill or blue pill in my comments? Dan Saber. And I said, please give me the blue pill. I'm ready to wake up. And now everybody's saying the red pill's dead. It's funny. Look maxing, bro? So then the look max, you got to judge what these dudes look like. Because the bitches don't give a fuck. I'm calling them bitches because the females that are into this shit with y'all are y'all females and y'all are dogs. I got banned for naming a video, Let My People Go, talking about the 10 Commandments. It had nothing to do with black, white, purple, green. It was talking biblical, and I got banned. Then I saw a rabbi talking about stone the gays, stone the Arabs, stone the Muslims, blah, 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 and Clavicle talking about, I'm not finna say, dude, this shit is based. Thank you, Matan. Matan, when I first watched Matan, I thought he was silly. I left a couple comments like, bro, what the Then I didn't realize he was basically a lefty, which that don't matter. But he's trolling, and most of his fans are right-wing or conservative and don't even realize he's making fun of them. I think he's pro-trans. Whatever you're into, I'm not telling you to trans. That's not what I just said the point of that. I'm saying you need to be able to go to a place where you don't want to cause people harm. What does a trans person harm you in any way? Now, if they tricking people and sleeping people that want to be straight, that's some fuck shit. If somebody puts hands on you for that, technically to me, that's rape. Because I had to argue with one of my cousins for this. She's white too. That's interesting. I told her I didn't want to sleep with no trans men. Now, this woman's a lesbian. And all day long, every day, she's posting about how men ain't shit, men are trash, men, posting at gay bars. She's doing her little mechanic thing. Cool. I don't got no problem with all that. Because men are shit sometimes. Just like women can be shit. We all are capable. And so one day I posted, I don't want to sleep with trans men. That's just my preference. I don't give consent to that. or trans woman, whatever. And she got on my post and said, you're going to sleep with him. He's a hottie or a baddie, because I think she's pro-LGBT, and said that it shouldn't be a problem. That right then and there, I said, that's the most hypocritical shit I've ever heard. I didn't say it to her like that because I told her I'm friendly. I'm just simply like, okay, in that case, consent isn't real, and it's okay to, and you think I should be raped. And she was like, no, it's not the same, whatever. Ooh, I don't want to argue. And I said, it is the same. And this one I said, I see you constantly talk bad about men on your profile. Now, I want to be with women as a man, the same thing you want to do, and I'm bad if I don't want to be with a trans woman. I'm not saying I don't think they should exist. I don't even like that statement, because that shouldn't even be a statement that has to be said. That's fucked. I don't think we should attack them. I think they should be able to go into a restaurant and take a piss, just like when us blacks wanted to go into restaurants and take pisses. But the problem comes in when people say, oh, you're gay because you don't like it. Oh, you're projecting. Oh, you're this and that. No, dude. You're doing exactly what they're doing. And so by the end of the thing, she said, I'm sorry, cuz woo. And I showed a gif of Mike Bukowski hugging the little girl, I forget what her name is, from Monsters, Inc. But we all have preferences. A lot of times, I had a teacher one time tell me about prejudice. We all have it. And that has to do with survival and stuff. But at the same time, when you start telling everybody, y'all should feel like this, and y'all should feel like that, and y'all should blah, 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 and everybody, but I was watching Matan, and some grown-ass man was like, I think people should get married. They should be married, and they should have kids. They should be having kids in their marriage, and they shouldn't split up. What the fuck are you talking about? Why do you care? It doesn't make sense. Then he asked him, do you think kids should be conservative? Would you rather your kids be liberal or murder people? And he said, well, I don't like talking about kids. I don't want to talk about my kids. I don't want to talk about my kids. Everybody who is a living soul has parents, which means they're somebody's kids. This whole stick with your white. I think he's the leader of he created the Proud Boys. He did a podcast with Matan. And the guy that hired 20 Indian dudes to stand in the middle of the podcast, because Matan is kind of like, he does not threatening things, but he's a troll. He's funny. And the guy that had 20 Indian dudes stand in, I think his name is Sam something. That was so fucking funny, bro. And they kept asking him, like, do you need this? Do you need help? Can I get you anything? That was hilarious, bro. That was fucking hilarious. Yeah, you said some things that, because he's super liberal and he's super, like, cool, I guess, I think. But he said some things that were like, ooh. But I know it's comedy. And the Indian dudes didn't seem to give a fuck. They were cool with it. But that's not a reason to be, that's some clandestine shit. What I'm saying is, anything could seem, oh, that's racist, or oh, that's cool. It's our personal preferences. And we should try to respect other people to the best of our ability. If they're not psychos. Because I'm not going to respect you wanting to hail Hitler. I'm sorry. You're a fucking nut. Hitler's a part of the beast, in case y'all forgot.